9 AD. September. 3 Roman legions are marching through a forest in Germania. Publius Quinctilius Varus commands 20,000 soldiers, the 17th, 18th, and 19th Legions. He is not marching to battle. He is marching to put down what his local ally has described as a minor tribal dispute, a routine operation. He expects to be back in winter quarters within days. His local ally is riding beside him. His name is Arminius. He is a Germanic chieftain who was raised in Rome, trained in Roman military tactics, granted Roman citizenship, and given the rank of equestrian knight. He is also the man who has spent the last 3 months secretly uniting every Germanic tribe in the region for a single purpose. Varus trusts him completely. In 72 hours, all 3 legions will be destroyed. The 17th, 18th, and 19th will never march again. Rome will retire those numbers permanently, the only legion numbers in history never reused. But the massacre that is coming is not just about betrayal. It is about something Rome has never encountered before, a battlefield it cannot fight on. To understand why the Teutoburg Forest destroyed Rome, you need to understand what made Rome invincible everywhere else. The Roman legion was an engineering marvel disguised as an army. Its power was not individual soldiers. Germanic warriors were physically larger and often individually stronger than Roman legionaries. Its power was the system. The legion fought in tight rectangular formations, shields locked together into an unbreakable wall, soldiers moving as a single organism, advancing, retreating, rotating exhausted men to the back and fresh men to the front, all on command, all in perfect synchronization. This system had one absolute requirement: flat, open ground. On flat ground, the Roman formation was geometrically perfect. Every soldier had room to maintain position. Commands carried across the entire line. Flanks could be protected. Cavalry could operate. Artillery, ballistae, and bolt throwers could cover advancing infantry. On flat ground, Rome was unbeatable. The Teutoburg Forest was not flat ground. It was dense Germanic woodland. Ancient oaks so close together that a man could barely walk between them. Undergrowth that grabbed at legs and equipment. Narrow paths that forced a column of 20,000 men to stretch into a line 12 miles long. Arminius had chosen this ground deliberately. He had studied Roman tactics for years. He knew exactly what the forest would do to the formation. He had been planning this for months. The column enters the forest on the first day of September, 9 AD. 20,000 soldiers, several thousand camp followers, servants, traders, family members who traveled with the army. Wagons carrying equipment, food, artillery components, pack animals. The entire apparatus of a Roman army on the march. In open terrain, this column moves efficiently. Scouts ahead, cavalry on the flanks, infantry in the center, baggage at the rear. In the forest, it becomes something else entirely. The trees force the cavalry off the flanks. Horses cannot move through dense woodland. The scouts have nowhere to operate. Visibility drops to 20 meters in every direction. The wagons slow to a crawl on the soft forest floor, creating gaps in the column. The gaps grow. By midday, the column is no longer a military formation. It is a line of separate groups, each unable to see the next, stretching 12 miles through the trees. Then the rain starts. Heavy Germanic autumn rain that turns the forest floor to mud and soaks every shield, every bowstring, every piece of leather equipment the Romans carry. The noise of rain on leaves fills the forest, masking every other sound. Arminius excuses himself from Varus. He rides ahead, he says, to prepare his own warriors to support the Roman march. Varus watches him go. He sees nothing unusual. He should have seen everything. Day 1, mid-afternoon. The first spears come from the tree line without warning. Not a battle, not a charge, just javelins appearing from the undergrowth, hitting soldiers who cannot see where they came from. and then silence again. By the time the Romans turn to face the direction of the attack, the warriors are gone, vanished back into the trees. This was the first problem the forest created. The Roman tactical response to any attack was immediate and precise. Identify the enemy, form a defensive line facing the threat, advance in formation, close the distance, engage with short swords at close range where Roman discipline destroyed individual fighters. This response required seeing the enemy. In the Teutoburg forest, there was no enemy to see. There were trees, undergrowth, shadows, and then javelins coming from nowhere. The moment Romans turned to face the attack stopped. The moment they turned back, it started again from a different direction. Germanic warriors knew every path, every clearing, every ridge in this forest. They had hunted here since childhood. They moved through dense woodland at full speed with no noise. The Romans moved through the same woodland like men wading through water, slow, loud, and blind. Every tactical advantage Rome possessed had been neutralized before the first spear was thrown, and the column was still 12 miles long. Day 1, evening. Varus makes a decision that costs thousands of lives. He orders the column to build a camp for the night, standard Roman procedure. Every evening on the march, legionaries built a full fortified camp. Ditch, earthwork wall, wooden palisade. It took 3 hours and turned a vulnerable column into a defended position. It was the right decision by every rule Rome had ever written, but it required cutting down trees. And cutting trees in the dark, in the rain, in a forest full of invisible enemies cost the Romans 2 more hours of exposure. Men digging ditches and hauling timber were men not holding shields. The Germanic warriors attacked during construction, picking off soldiers at the edge of the tree line, retreating before any response could form. By the time the camp was complete, the Romans had already lost hundreds of men, and the real attack had not yet begun. Inside the camp, Varus faces the second impossible problem: communication. In open terrain, Roman commanders controlled the battle through visual signals and horn calls that carried across the entire formation. Every centurion could see the standards, hear the orders, respond to the command. In the forest, the column was split into isolated groups that could not see each other. Messages traveled by runner through hostile woodland. By the time an order reached the rear of the column, the situation at the front had already changed. The army was fighting blind, and tomorrow would be worse. Day 2, dawn. Varus makes the only decision he can. He cannot stay in the forest indefinitely. Food and water are limited, and the camp is not defensible long term. He must move. The nearest open terrain and the road back to Roman territory lies ahead. He orders the march to continue. The column moves out of camp and back onto the forest path. Within minutes, the attacks resume. Arminius had spent the night positioning his warriors, not in one place, along the entire 12-mile length of the column simultaneously. Every group of Romans that moved was attacked from multiple directions at once. Every group that stopped was surrounded. The forest path itself was a weapon. Germanic warriors had built low earthworks along the ridgeline running parallel to the Roman path, barriers that channeled the Roman column in a specific direction while providing cover for attackers above. The Romans were not just walking through a forest. They were walking through a killing ground that had been prepared specifically for them. The third impossible problem appeared now: the wounded. In normal battle, wounded soldiers fell back behind the line and were treated. In the forest column, there was no rear line. The wounded had to be carried by healthy soldiers who were then unable to fight. Every casualty reduced fighting strength twice. Once the wounded man, once the man carrying him. The column was slowing down, the attacks were increasing, and Arminius had not yet committed his main force. Day 2, midday. The forest opens briefly into a narrow clearing. Varus orders the army to halt and form up, the first time in 2 days that the Romans can actually stand in proper formation. It works. Germanic warriors who probe the edges of the clearing are met with locked shields and disciplined counterattacks. For a few hours, the slaughter stops. Varus sees this and draws the wrong conclusion. The formation is the answer. He needs to get his entire column into open ground. He is not wrong. He is 2 days too late. The clearing is a mile wide. His column is 12 miles long. The rear sections are still in dense forest, still being attacked, still unable to form any coherent defensive line. The front of the army is safe, while the back is dying. Varus sends cavalry back along the column to provide relief.
In open terrain, cavalry was Rome's fastest and most flexible asset. In the forest, horses cannot gallop, cannot maneuver, cannot charge. The cavalry pushes through the trees at walking pace, arrives at crisis points after the moment of crisis has passed, and accomplishes almost nothing. By evening, Varus makes the final decision. He orders everything that is slowing the column destroyed, wagons burned, artillery abandoned, baggage left on the forest floor. The army that marched into the Teutoburg forest had already ceased to exist as a military force. What remained was a mass of men trying to survive. The main attack had not yet happened. Day 3. Dawn. Arminius commits everything. For 2 days, his warriors had been bleeding the column with harassment and ambush, wearing down Roman strength, destroying equipment, breaking the formation. Exhausting men who had not slept properly in 48 hours. This was deliberate. He was not trying to win with ambushes. He was preparing the ground for the moment when his full force would strike a broken enemy. That moment had arrived. Tens of thousands of Germanic warriors emerge from the tree line simultaneously along the entire length of the remaining column. Not a harassment, a full assault from every direction at once. The Romans cannot form a line because there is no line to form. The attack comes from everywhere. They cannot retreat because the path behind them is also blocked. They cannot advance because the path ahead is a wall of warriors. Small groups of Romans form defensive circles, the last tactic available when formation is impossible. These circles held for minutes, sometimes longer. Then they were overwhelmed, one by one. Varus looked at what remained of his army and made the decision that Roman commanders made when capture was certain. He fell on his own sword. When his officers saw their commander die, the last organized resistance collapsed. What followed was not battle, it was elimination. Group by group, the circles were destroyed until nothing remained. 3 legions, 20,000 soldiers, gone in 3 days. 6 years later, a Roman general named Germanicus led an army back into the Teutoburg forest. What his soldiers found stopped them in place. Bones, everywhere, scattered across miles of forest floor, bleached white, undisturbed, exactly where men had fallen 6 years before. Skulls nailed to trees, fragments of Roman equipment rusting in the undergrowth. The remains of altars where Germanic tribes had sacrificed Roman officers. Tacitus, the Roman historian who recorded the account, wrote that Germanicus's soldiers wept as they walked through the site. Veterans who recognized the equipment of men they had served with. They buried what they could find and built a single burial mound. Then they left. Rome never again seriously attempted to conquer the Germanic tribes east of the Rhine. The river became the permanent boundary of the empire. The territories beyond it, the forests, the tribes, the land where the legions had vanished, were left alone. The Teutoburg forest did something that no enemy army had managed in centuries of Roman expansion. It permanently stopped Rome. Not through superior numbers or superior tactics,
through terrain. 3 years after the disaster, Augustus Caesar was still seen wandering his palace at night, striking his head against the walls and crying out the same words. "Varus, give me back my legions." The legions never came back. The forest kept them. Rome lost 20,000 soldiers in 3 days. But the real loss was something larger. The Roman military system, the most sophisticated and successful war machine the ancient world had ever produced, was not defeated by a better army. It was defeated by an environment it was not designed for. Every element that made Rome invincible on open ground became a liability in the forest. The tight formation required space that did not exist. The communication system required visibility that the trees blocked. The cavalry required ground the horses could not cross. The artillery required flat trajectories the undergrowth made impossible. Arminius did not beat the Roman legion. He removed the conditions that made the Roman legion work. What remained was 20,000 individual soldiers, heavily equipped, exhausted, unable to see the enemy or communicate with each other, in terrain they had never trained for. The Teutoburg Forest was not a battle. It was a system failure. Military historians still study it today, not as a story of Germanic heroism or Roman incompetence, but as the clearest example in history of what happens when a perfectly optimized system encounters conditions it was never designed to handle. The legion was perfect. The forest was not the right place for perfection. Augustus lost 3 legions and gained a permanent border. Rome stopped expanding east. 2,000 years later, the Rhine still marks where the Roman world ended and the Germanic world began. The trees won.